Urza. It is the Grixis Urza deck you've probably seen floating around Magic Online. And Coval's going to be taking on Devin Gibson, piloting Mono Red Phoenix. And Mono Red Phoenix kind of getting some attention as a possible anti-Hogak option because it is so aggressive, so quick onto the battlefield. And there you see Monastery Swiftspear, turn 1, already getting the beats on.
Yeah, so it's a very fast deck, and it doesn't worry about the graveyard hate, right? Like, if you eat its graveyard, it's still just going to burn you out and attack you on the ground, and so that's not a big deal. On the opposite side, you were talking about all the main deck hate that people have for Hogak or don't have for Hogak. We're looking at Grafdigger's Cage, Nile Spellbomb, Tormod's Crypt, Pithing Needle, all coming out of this Urza deck. And then obviously you have Whir of Invention to go find them. You have the Goblin Engineer to go find them. So it'll be interesting to see as the day goes on if that number of hate cards is enough to hold down the graveyard decks.
We shall see. I want to point out some interesting cards seeing play on Brian Coval's side. You see he led with Prismatic Vista, that new fetch land from Modern Horizons, went and found a snow-covered island and deployed Arkham's Astrolabe. A little bit of mana filtering there, draw a card. Exactly what this Grixis Urza deck is looking for. But meanwhile, Devin Gibson going to work on his side of the battlefield. Played another Monastery Swiftspear, followed that with a Gut Shot, and then light up the stage. Explosive start from this Mono Red Phoenix deck.
This is what it looks to do. It wants to get a prowess creature on the board, turns 1 and 2, and then just caps sheep and free spells.
And there you see Brian Coval already falling to 11 life. Precarious life total immediately. Going to have to get some defenses up from this Grixis Urza deck. Let's see what he can find. Deploys another Arkham's Astrolabe. Going to tap Mox Opal. Go ahead and cast Serum Visions. I don't know how much setup time Coval's going to have here. He's going to need to get on the battlefield very quickly if he's going to be able to recover here.
Yeah, but potentially the game is over this turn, right? Brian just missed a land drop. He has no resources to work with, so Devin just has the green light to finish the game if he can. And
he's got a hand that can do it, too.
Yeah, I think he can and will do this.
Here's another Swiftspear, number 3. Here's Lava Spike. Coval falls to 8. Those Swiftspears get a little bit bigger. Here's light up the stage again. Swiftspears get even bigger.
Yep.
That is going to be lethal.
Oof.
And there you see why people are moving to this Mono Red Phoenix deck en masse. Damage in just absolute mass quantities coming very quickly towards Coval. And Gibson up a game already.
Yeah, I mean, that's just blisteringly fast. If the Grixis Urza deck has time to set up, they do have, obviously, the Infinite Loop with the Thopter Foundry and the Sword of the Meek. He'll be able to gain all that life, make the tokens, et cetera, et cetera. The question is, can the Mono Red Phoenix just close out the game before he has a chance to do that?
Yeah, that was an exceptional draw from Mono Red Phoenix, but they are capable of doing that. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at the sideboards here. We'll start over on Brian Coval's side. There you see 4 Leyline of the Void, very prepared for Hogak. 2 copies of Tezzeret, 2 copies of Psy Master Thopterist, 2 copies of Surgical Extraction, 2 Fatal Push, and 2 Galvanic Blast. What are you looking for here if you're in Brian Coval's seat? Looking to get a little leaner, a little bit more removal on your side of the battlefield?
Yeah, I definitely like the removal that's going on here. Like I said, the Mono Red Phoenix deck is just all about those 1-drop prowess creatures. So if you're able to just kill one on turn 1, kill one on turn 2, it gives you that breathing room to just execute your game plan from there. So I expect the pushes, the Galvanic Blasts, and I also think that Psy is just great at just producing tons of chump blockers and drawing you extra cards along the way if you need to.
Any interest in the Surgical Extraction to deal with the recursive threat of the Arclight Phoenixes, or is that just not what you're worried about in this matchup?
I think it's a card that is probably too narrow for this matchup. It just, there's times when it'll be good, but there's times when it's going to be so bad in your hand, and I don't want that so bad of a card in my hand in a game that can just end so quick. I want to make sure that I can use all of my cards. I want them as cheap as possible, and I want the utility that always does something.
Absolutely. Facing that kind of pressure, you really can't have a miss in any draw steps. You'll just fold immediately, and I think Surgical Extraction is a miss more often than not. Meanwhile, over on Devin Gibson's side, we are looking at 2 Abrade, 2 Flame Slash, 2 Blood Moon, 2 Dragon's Claw, 2 Ravenous Trap, 2 Shrine of Burning Rage, and finally, 2 Surgical Extractions. Craig, what are you doing if you're over on Devin's side here?
There's 3 Surgical Extractions on the end, but
thank you.
I like you just going with the 2 theme because that's kind of what he decided to do today.
Sure.
He's hedging a lot of bets here with this sideboard. I'm a little surprised just because, we've talked about this Hogak deck, and the format is interesting to me because it seems like everyone's got to start with 5 to 7 sideboard cards for Hogak.
Right.
And then you only have another 8-ish sideboard cards to deal with the entire rest of the metagame. It's just a funny dynamic that's going on right now. For this matchup, the Abrades are just super flexible. It can take out a Goblin Engineer if it needs to. It can take out one of the artifacts if it needs to. Like that card a lot. Same with the Flame Slash. It can clear out the early Psy. It can deal with Urza. It's just what you want to be able to do in this matchup. So I like those cards. Everything else I don't think that I would mess with. I'd kind of have the attitude, maybe on the draw you want a Surgical to cut off the combos, the loops, but I wouldn't go more than one of those. On the play, I wouldn't play any of them. I would just try to kill my opponent as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's an interesting tension between wanting to get your opponent dead and being able to answer what they're capable of. I think I agree with you. I'm just looking for aggression out of the Mono Red Phoenix side here. So you do see in our other games, James Manges up a game against Ryan Tucker. That's the Izzet Phoenix versus Eldrazi Tron matchup. Again, kind of some weird things going on behind the Hogak face of the format, including the rise of Eldrazi Tron a little bit.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to fight these decks, like, you have to be doing something else that's on a similar power level, and Turn 1 Chalice is definitely on that power level against a lot of the metagame.
Sounds pretty good to me. I got to tell you, Craig, I am comfortable as heck in these Karnox chairs. I am just chilling, relaxing here. You helped me with my settings a little bit. Plenty of adjustments to be made with the Karnox chairs. Now I'm reclining, just really relaxing and enjoying my time in this weirdo format that's not going to last for very long. If you want to do the same at home and lounge in your Karnox chair as you watch the SCG Tour, why not head over to karnox.com/SCG and you can check out all their offerings. It really is a comfortable chair.
I am quite comfortable. The the difference here of sitting in a suit in one of these chairs, I feel a little silly.
This is esports, Craig. This is what we do. We bring a little flash, a little sizzle, and then a little bit conservative, button-down, serious business look. It's a mix of the two. It's E and sports. Here's the E, these beautiful Karnox chairs.
Sure.
We're like your traditional sportscasters, well-dressed, ready to provide hitting play-by-play analysis.
We shouldn't have like a little jersey on or something for the sports side of things?
Well, I have to say, I have been pushing Cedric to get more and more casual as time goes on. I'm really trying to push sports jackets through currently. After I crack him on that, then I'm going to start talking throwbacks. Like, we're going to just do flashy jerseys, really lean into the sports side of things. So we're already started here, and it was an explosive start from Brian Coval. It's a turn 1 Grafdigger's Cage Tormod's Crypt combination. That's a lot of resources to be used, and none of those resources look good in the face of a 1-drop creature that gets prowess.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by a couple of things. One, I'm surprised that this is all still in his deck because he had to, cut some cards to bring some cards in.
Yep.
And second, I'm surprised he just deployed both of them on the first turn. There's definitely payoffs in his deck where it's better to hold on to these cards. One, you would give your opponent less information. And two, if you're playing Psy, which we thought he might bring in this matchup,
right,
it's better to just have one of these later, right? Your opponent's not going to go first turn, make a bunch of Phoenixes.
Well, that makes sense to me. So Devin Gibson on the offense after Coval deployed his Sword of the Meek. Just beating in for 1 with the Soul Scar Mage, casting Light Up the Stage post-combat. And there is Psy now. Interesting. You have to wonder why Coval didn't choose to hold that Tormod's Crypt. Certainly could have drawn Psy afterwards, but to your point, it makes a lot of sense to hold there, especially when you have Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't think he's going to be punished for it this game. The opponent's gotten this kind of a plodding start to the game.
A lot of lands.
And Brian has not missed a land drop. He's pretty set up there. There's tons of good draws where Brian will potentially win the game on the spot.
Yeah, and here's just another 1-drop from Devin Gibson. It's Monastery Swiftspear. Not really able to do any work. And now we get a side trigger.
Looks like a Mishra's Bauble, but I'm not 100%. We'll get that on camera more.
There we go. It is a bauble. You were correct. Yeah, only 18 lands in the Mono Red Phoenix deck. Gibson has found about 6 or 7 of them, based on my count. Does have a Sunbaked Canyon, which you can cash in for a draw. One of the new adds from Modern Horizons. Here's an Ensnaring Bridge from Coval. That's going to put another token onto the battlefield. and do a good job blunting any kind of offense that Gibson can put together here. He is going to cash in that Sunbaked Canyon. Take a look at another card.
This is a pretty interesting game so far. Obviously, Brian hasn't done anything that unfair, but he's so close, right? He has just all the pieces. If he empties his hand, his opponent can't attack anymore. Even his opponent casting this before combat, now he can't attack.
Yeah, now his creatures can't attack. Is just firing off Lava Spike and light up the stage. They're going to take a look at 2 more cards. It's another Lava Spike and a Monastery Swift Spear. Gibson seemingly all in on this burn plan now.
Yep, no choice.
There is that Lava Spike. Coval's going to fall to 12. And Gibson passes the turn back. Over in one of our other matches, you do see Alex Bastecki up a game against Javier Blanco Ramos. I'm not sure that name's right, actually. I think that's the judge who actually reviewed these deck lists. We'll get that corrected real quick. No, never mind. There he is. There is Javier Blanco Ramos in that 3rd seat for his team.
We don't want to just make up names for the players?
No, we probably shouldn't do that.
No, all right.
Try for a little accuracy here on the SCG Tour.
So on Coval's side of the board, he's looking for one of the payoffs here. He's looking for an Urza. He's looking for a Goblin Engineer. There we go.
There you go. Goblin Engineer going to go ahead, enter the battlefield. And that's going to find a card to send to the bin.
I'm expecting Thopter Foundry. There we go.
It is a Thopter Foundry. You are correct. And that's going to enable, after a little setup, this infinite combo, which is just not going to be something Devin Gibson has a lot of outs against.
Sure, it's not infinite right now without Urza on the board, but like obviously just looping the Sword of the Meek Thopter Foundry is pretty powerful. Just gaining life, making tons of Thopters.
So the draw from Gibson, it's going to be an Arclight Phoenix.
So he's got to get this Engineer off of the board, right? Like he can't leave that around to let the artifact combo get into play.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Let's see if he has options to be able to answer that new Modern Horizons card. Here's a Bedlam Reveler from Gibson. That's going to take a look at some new cards. There you see Goblin Engineer, as I mentioned, a new ad from Modern Horizons, kind of a callback to Goblin Welder. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for an artifact card, put it in your graveyard, shuffle your library. Then you can play red, sacrifice an artifact, return target artifact card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. As we mentioned, can go get that Thopter Foundry when you have multiple Arkham's Astrolabe. It functions as a draw engine, does a lot of stuff for this Grixis Urza deck.
So one of the things I really like about this Grixis Urza deck is that the mana base is actually very good without using your life as a resource.
Right.
So it doesn't have to play a whole bunch of fetches and shocks. It has those four Arkham's Astrolabe, which is huge, and then obviously it has the Mox that will also help fix the mana.
Well, here is an activation of that Engineer. Thopter Foundry enters the battlefield, puts Sword of the Meek into the graveyard. Not a problem. That'll be back before you know it. And things now looking grim for Devin Gibson. Coval going to go ahead, sacrifice Tormod's Crypt, make a 1/1 Thopter. Sword of the Meek gets attached and can now sacrifice Sword of the Meek when he chooses for a Thopter and 1 life.
Ooh, we're going to get a little frisky in the air.
Yeah. A little beatdown action.
How's that taste?
2 times, says Coval. 2 Thopters whirring in. Going to bring Gibson down to 18.
And from Brian's side of the board, I think the only thing he worries about is getting burned out from this point. Like, even if the opponent manages to destroy the bridge, he can just make tons of Thopters. He's got Psy. So the only thing he worries about is his life total. And he's like 13 when your opponent doesn't have that many cards. Pretty comfortable spot to be in. Yeah,
feel mostly safe from that point. I will mention the red Finale kind of changes up the math quite a bit. Finale of Promise can do a lot of damage out of nowhere. Return a Lava Spike, return a Lightning Bolt. Opponent's taking 6 from just 1 card. That's pretty insane utility, but not getting up to those kind of shenanigans quite yet.
And I'm a little surprised there were no attacks there from Devin's side. Brian actually has 3 or 4 cards in his hand right now. So, you're not blocking these Thopters, so it might as well get frisky.
Yeah, here come the Thopters again. Brian just going to go ahead and deploy tapped Watery Grave. The defenses are now getting set up. The window is closing quickly for Devin Gibson. Meanwhile, over in the Izzet Phoenix versus Eldrazi Tron match, Eldrazi Tron took a game. That match all tied up, 1 game apiece. James Manges versus Ryan Tucker.
So on Devin's side, he's working with a couple of lands in his hand, but he also has 2 lightning bolts. And again, I think not attacking last turn is kind of a big deal. He needed to clear the way for his guys to attack again this turn.
Mm-hmm.
And each turn that he waits, it gets a little worse for him. There's more Thopters in play. His life total is a little bit lower. Brian has more mana to work with to make the Thopters.
Well, looks like we are going to attack now. Here comes Soulscar Mage and Monastery Swiftspear. Coval going to respond by sacrificing Sword of the Meek, making a Thopter, gaining a life, bringing back Sword of the Meek. This feels delightfully old school. I know you were around during the era of Thopter Foundry Sword and Extended alongside Hexmage Depths. One of my favorite decks of all time. Man, that deck was broken.
Sure, yeah. That format got so interesting where a lot of the decks just slowly melded into each other.
Right.
And it stopped being like this deck or that deck or that deck, and it was just like the best parts of all of them.
Yeah, really interesting. Kind of reminiscent of the Splinter Twin Stoneblade format as well, where those decks eventually congealed into one unbeatable mass.
Yes.
Here come these lightning bolts now. We're going to fire those off, make these creatures a little bit bigger. Coval taking a bit of damage there, but still with this Thopter Sword combo online, going to be able to replenish life total basically at will. Only an Urza away from just closing this one out entirely with an infinite combo.
Yeah, and he doesn't even need the Urza, right? Like, he has 4 lands to gain 4 life and make 4 1/1s every single turn.
Quite good against Mono Red Phoenix.
Yeah, it just... To me, I can't see this game going more than 1 or 2 turns. Even if he doesn't have enough to attack to kill the opponent.
Right.
It's like, what's Devin doing here that he's going to be in this game?
Not a whole lot. Here's 5 damage headed Devin's way. Coval deployed an Astrolabe and put another Thopter into play via Sai. Has 4 mana open, ready to gain 4 life, make 4 blockers. Gibson draws another land. 3 lands in hand now. Going to go ahead and deploy one. Passes the turn back. And Coval says, yeah, it's Thopter time. Gaining a bunch of life, making a bunch of Thopters. And this one's all but over.
Yeah. Yep. But the important thing is Devin's back on the play for the 3rd game.
Absolutely.
Which is huge for any deck, but especially his deck.
Yeah, I think particularly in this matchup, play draw, very important dynamic. My read on the Grixis Urza deck is that for the format as it stands right now, it's about a half turn too slow. And that difference really comes into play when you're on the draw. I believe that if we deal with a format that slows down a little bit, if there are some bans, if there are some changes, then absolutely Grixis Urza is going to be a very, very powerful force in the format. A little bit below my tier 1 right now, though.
I would agree with that assessment. I also wonder if the deck isn't quite there yet with what people
figured
are
out
doing.
For sure. Yeah, there's moves to make.
So we see this small, like, snow sub-theme. Specifically, Brian's list has 4 Urza, 4 Goblin Engineer. I wonder if you're supposed to just be shaving these cards.
Well, that was a point that Canister made. He said he felt that the cards that people were playing 4 ofs that were bad in multiple spots, the correct thing to do in this deck was just trim some copies.
Yeah, like, you're always happy with 1 Urza, but you're actually super unhappy with 2 Urza.
Right.
And
same with Goblin Engineer.
Yep. So I could see just playing, 2 or 3 of each of those cards.
Yeah.
And then I wonder if the deck just needs more main deck answers. Maybe some lightning bolts or the galvanic blast or something like that
sure,
in the main deck. Just to have more interaction. it's kind of wild to think that going first turn Serum Visions is, like in some matchups, you're almost conceding with that opening, right? Like the format is so fast right now,
right,
that it looks silly when you play first turn Serum Visions and you don't get onto the board with something else.
Pretty wild times. Interesting to note, we were both concerned about Brian's opener there, led on Grafdigger's Cage, Tormod's Crypt. Neither of those cards were relevant in the game, and he still won pretty easily.
Well, he was able to eat one,
right?
And turn him into
something,
Thopters.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, really interesting stuff there. And sometimes your cards are just going to line up well. I think that was the case there for Coval. Had Sai at the right time, and then just quickly assembled the sword combo. Interesting to see if he wants to trim back on hate a little bit, although I don't think I saw him go to his sideboard here. I think we just shuffled up for game 3. I may be mistaken on that.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's possible that he trimmed some other pieces. I can't imagine the Pithing Needle is in for this matchup.
Sure.
Like, what are you going to name with that?
Basically blank, yeah.
It's possible that the Nile Spellbomb came out, but to me, that's just better than Tormod's Crypt. So maybe it's still in there. I don't know. We saw the Fatal Push,
right.
So we know that those came in. We saw
Sai.
the Sai, so we know that came in. The question is, what did he trim to get these cards in? It might have just been the creatures that we had talked about, Urza and Goblin Engineer and stuff like that.
Maybe, look, there's some tension here, right? Because you are an engine deck, you're relying on having a certain amount of artifacts in play most games. Your deck really only excels when it has a certain amount of artifacts in play. You need to turn on your Mox Opal. You need to enable Sai. All those things are important, and getting that balance just right sometimes requires some concessions, and maybe such it justifies leaving Tormod's Crypt, Grafdigger's Cage in the deck.
Sure. All right.
Players just shuffling up here for game 3. As you mentioned, Devin Gibson going to be thrilled to take back the play here and look for one of those explosive openers like we saw in game 1. Can't do much better than 3 Monastery Swift Spears and a bunch of 1-drops.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, his game 1 draw was just ridiculous. The light up the stages are perfect for this deck.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it wants to do.
Well, this deck's gotten a lot recently, and here we go again. Turn 1 Monastery Swift Spear on the beatdown plan, and the response from Coval, turn 1 Grafdigger's Cage. So certainly important against some draws, can shut down those explosive Phoenix starts. And you see over on Devin Gibson's side, I believe I spy 2 copies of Surgical Extraction. Now, interesting card against Coval's deck. It does shut down that Thopter Sword combo, but it's going to blunt some of the explosiveness here. And there comes Swiftspear, only in for 1 damage. The follow-up, Soulscar Mage, and a second Mountain.
This is actually a good start. It's pretty unfortunate for him that he drew multiple of these Surgical Extractions. They have such diminishing returns.
Right. Well, here's the Thopter Foundry. That's the card you're concerned about, the one you want to pick off with Surgical Extraction. I think I saw a light up the stage there, which would be a fine draw in this spot for Devin Gibson.
Yeah, he wants to be able to start by dealing the opponent some damage and then light up the stage.
Yep.
But obviously, if the damage he deals is through attacking, then he doesn't get the prowess light up the stage triggers.
Well, here's Faithless Looting. Going to be able to pitch one of those Surgical Extractions. I'm sure Devin very happy not to be saddled with 2 copies of that card in hand.
And if you're Brian on the other side of the board, your red flag goes up there, right? You're like,
right.
Oh, you just pitched a Surgical Extraction?
Something's going on.
Yeah, well, there's a very good chance he has another one, right? This is a deck card that's very important against my deck.
Mm-hmm. But look at this. Look at this. Devin discarding the second copy of Surgical Extraction as well. And he's on the beatdown plan. Here comes 6 damage heading Coval's way. Coval going to fall to 12. Follow up land. Follow up light up the stage. Gibson all in on the beatdown plan here.
I actually like this a lot. Ooh.
Finds Lava Spike, Sunbake Canyon. So going to be able to redraw as well. This is a very good aggressive start from Gibson. What's Coval's response?
Yeah, and Devin has the option to look at a ton of cards next turn with the 2 Horizon lands.
Yeah.
The Manamorphose, which I believe is the last card in his hand.
Land pass from Coval.
And Coval better have a Fatal Push or something along those lines here. Just making a Thopter out of this Grafdigger's Cage is not going to do it.
Gibson's going to cast that Manamorphose. Just finds another land. Not ideal. Definitely going to want to hold those, deploy that Sunbaked Canyon at some point.
Yeah, I like starting here, looking at the extra card, and then figuring out what you want to do with the turn.
We found another 1-drop creature there. Here's the follow-up Lava Spike. Coval falls to 9. 2 spells played this turn. Here's that other canyon. And here come the beats. Does Coval have a removal spell? Does he need to chump block? Does he think he needs to cash in that Grafdigger's Cage just for a blocker here?
Yeah, and I think it's real awkward for him if that's his only play this turn.
And it is. He's going to make a Thopter. Let's see if he's got a Fatal Push on top of it. We're going to blocks. Blocking Soulscar Mage, taking damage from Swiftspear. Going to fall to 7 overall, I'm sorry.
Now, Devin did not deploy his other prowess creature. On some level, I think he is trying to play around a card like Dead of Winter.
Right.
But I think I just would have put it on the board that turn.
Here's Shrine of Burning Rage.
Okay, then it wasn't a prowess. I thought it was a Soulscar Mage in his hand, but it was probably this Shrine.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think we misread the hand there. Manamorpho is going to be the play here. Draws a card. It's Gut Shot. Gut Shot to Coval's face. 2 copies on that Shrine now.
And, I'm not sure what hand Brian kept here. He already mulliganed once, so you're pretty incentivized to keep a 6-card hand that's close.
Absolutely.
But this is what the Mono Red Phoenix deck does consistently, right? Is just gets on the board, deals some pressure, and then burns you out.
Yeah.
And this is kind of results-oriented talk here, but I think Brian needed to go to 5 with this hand that just didn't do enough.
Yeah, I don't know how many 5s his deck really has to offer him that can compete against this Mono Red Phoenix deck, but sacking Thopter Foundry to itself to make a chump blocker, never where you want to be. Now facing down a Shrine of Burning Rage that's going to present 3 damage on the next turn, 2 prowess creatures. Here is Dead of Winter that's going to deal with the battlefield. Possibly buy Coval another turn. There's that Shrine of Burning Rage trigger, putting a counter on that. Draws a Lava Spike. That's going to head towards Coval's face, and Coval just going to show 3 lands, extend the hand, and Devin Gibson with pure aggression from the Mono Red Phoenix deck going to take down Invitational winner Brian Coval 2-1. Interesting matchup there. Didn't quite get to see the Grixis deck at its finest.
It really didn't do much at all, the games that it lost. And it goes to what you're speaking of, where this deck is just 1 turn, 1.5 turns too slow. It doesn't have the interaction on the early turns or the consistency to do what it's trying to do on turn 3 and 4 every time. And, that's the format, right? The format is so fast right now. Wizards has kind of lost their mind with some of the cards that they print now. And they're just they threw their hands up and they're saying, we're going to let everyone do whatever they want. For a little bit, I look at some of the cards that got printed, even from the control side, when you look at cards like Narset, and I'm just like, this card is insane. It doesn't see play right now because the format's so freaking fast. But when the format slows down a little bit, Narset is going to be such a powerhouse. And Wizards just here's all these toys. Everyone go out and play. And some people are taking their blocks and poking other kids in the eyes with them. And, I think that's what you have to be doing here, is going after the dangerous blocks, so to speak, and do things as fast as possible.
No, it's a time of great upheaval in the modern format. We've seen an incredible amount of new prints really start to make their way into the format. And it sounds like we are going to have some more Magic for you. If you see over on our top result there, Alex Bastecki took down Javier Blanco Ramos 2-0. Izzet Phoenix versus Humans, and that means this match between James Manges and Ryan Tucker, Izzet Phoenix versus Eldrazi Tron, is going to be the one that determines the outcome. Getting ready to bring you that battlefield now. We're going to hop into things in progress. See if we can get some clarity on exactly what's happening here. Over on the left side of the battlefield, you see James Manges with a couple of Thing in the Ice ready to go to work. But Ensnaring Bridge over on the Eldrazi Tron side of the battlefield. So maybe not as dire as things first look.
All right, and here we got to test you on your Tron land artwork knowledge.
Yeah, that's not Tron.
That's not Tron. See, you're on top of it.
2 towers, 1 power plant. Still missing the mine, I believe.
No, I think what you think is a tower is a mine.
Oh, so then it is Tron?
I don't know. I'm so bad with my artwork. I was depending on you. But I know the one artwork, the description,
right? So
is literally Urzamine Tower.
You think the bottom one that we see on our screen right now is a mine? The one that clearly looks like a tower?
Yes, I believe that's a mine.
You may be correct.
But on the flip side, I can't imagine he wouldn't be deploying more cards if he had all of this mana to work with. It would mean his hand is very awkward.
Yeah, this is a strange dismember here, if that's the case. We'll get some clarity from our spotter. They'll let us know for sure if there's Tron on the battlefield. So now the turn has come back to James Manges and playing Saheeli. Interesting new card from War of the Spark for these Izzet Phoenix decks. Another one of those alternate win conditions, kind of mirroring Aria of Flame, and that doesn't need the graveyard and just goes off by you casting your cantrips.
Well, and it might be a little bit better against the Tron deck than Aria, just because if you need a chump block along the way, you can do that.
Absolutely. So we're hearing from our table spotter that is, in fact, an Urza's Mine, and boo the worst art in the history of the world. That is so clearly a tower.
So each artwork has a little description after it. It's like, and like I said, that one's Urza's Mine, and the description is tower.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know how they came up with this. Nope, can't tap like that.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. There you see the Urza's Tower and the Urza's Mine being tapped, and Reality Smasher going to enter the battlefield. Being held at bay, though, by that Awoken Horror, one of the few things in the format bigger than Reality Smasher. Of course, couldn't attack under the Ensnaring Bridge anyway.
Yeah, the Ensnaring Bridge is really the fun police here, right? Like,
I think we're looking at 4 cards in hand for Tucker, either 4 or 3, but...
Either way, the bridge is the fun police.
Yep.
No attacking.
Yeah, so it seems like these players are just going to kind of do their thing behind shields for a little while. James Manges, though, found a nice thing to do behind shields. It's Aria of Flame.
Sure, and that's one of the things that's so nice about this is it Phoenix deck is that it's so flexible in the mid-game. It looks at so many cards. Every single card that you play is a cantrip, and then you factor in, the finale, which is just multiple cantrips out of one card. And you're going to find the answer to the Ensnaring Bridge if you need to. You're going to find the Aria of Flame if that's your workaround. Like, you just look at so many cards. It's actually insane to me that on turn 6, they'll have 6 lands in play and still have 3 or 4 cards in their hand and this massive graveyard.
No, absolutely. And there you see Aria of Flame, one of the new adds to this deck from Modern Horizons. Kind of storm contained in a card itself. And if you've had this card on your side of the battlefield or cast against you, you know just how quickly this gets out of hand in the Izzet Phoenix deck.
Ooh. Ooh.
Big follow-up here, though, from Ryan Tucker. It's Karn, the great creator. All kinds of mana available.
Self-contained combo.
Yeah, what's available in the sideboard here?
And we all know the big one.
It's what were we calling it last week? I think we called it Microsoft Lettuce.
Okay. That's
not
not
what it's
a
called.
magic card.
Right,
Yep.
It's actually Mycosynth Lattice. And that will, of course, shut down Mange's ability to cast any more spells. However, there is some presence on the battlefield would be able to attack down the Karn. So it's not just a slam dunk here.
Yeah, the question is, can Tucker get enough cards out of his hand here?
Right, exactly. And I'm sure that's what he's debating right now. It looks like he's pulling Witchbane Orb? Witchbane Orb is going to come to the front.
Okay, so this is an answer to the Aria of Flame.
Absolutely. I believe Aria of Flame reads target opponent or planeswalker, so Witchbane Orb would in fact provide protection from that. It is going to be able to pick off the Karn, though. That's another reason why you can't just go get Lattice there.
Oh, that makes sense. Yes.
Although it shuts you off your mana, so unless you're firing off free spells, you're not going to trigger Aria anyway.
Well, there are free spells, and there's the possibility of just one spell pinging it, and then enough attacks to finish it off.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think Lattice was the grab here. I don't think it was safe. I think Tucker correctly figured that out. And now let's see what Manges can respond with. really well set up on his side of the battlefield, but some problematic permanents on the other side. This game got real complicated real fast.
Oh, I think it's super interesting that just both these decks are kind of doing their B plan, right?
Yeah.
Neither one is being able to attack, be aggressive. They didn't have those insano starts that we talk about. And the Tron deck kind of looks like it's the control deck at this point with the permanence that is set up on the board. And now it's a question of, like, can the Phoenix deck find the answers in time before it just gets completely locked out?
I think that is the question here. And you see Manges considering ways to deal with Karn. As we mentioned, Aria of Flame will do an effective job of that. I believe he's debating the best targets for his Finale of Promise. Man, there's just so many new cards that have come into this modern format as of late. Card after card after card that we're talking about. Brand new additions.
Yeah, like I said, I think WotC's just lost their mind. They just have given us so many ridiculous, powerful, broken cards. And I think when we get the new Mulligan rules, there's going to be even more unfair decks in the format that previously weren't quite consistent enough to justify play. But now when you look at 7 cards every time you mulligan, it's just going to increase the consistency of those decks.
Well, there is Allosaurus Rider sitting out there in the wings, waiting to do broken things. There's a lot of odd stuff going on in the modern format right now. Could be time for, like, a bit of a retool. Maybe we have to redefine what exactly modern is about. But I have to say I've enjoyed this format in flux. There's a lot of interesting discoveries to be made on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and everyone's expecting them to shake things up with some bans. Mm-hmm. A lot of the cards that we're looking at here are definitely on the watch list. They're potential bans. Even Manamorphose that's getting cast right now.
Sure.
All of the free cards.
Yep.
The cards that facilitate the graveyard a little too easily.
Faithless Looting, of course.
Yep.
Always in the discussion of a card that maybe is too powerful for modern.
The cards that only do really stupid, unfair things. So like Bridge from Below. Which, yep. Every time I look at that card, I just have to laugh. Like, why does it have a mana cost on it?
That is a good question.
Who's been like, you know what? Running this out on turn 3.
They've been cast occasionally. I have seen it, but it's weird when it happens.
And it doesn't matter when that happens. It's just not how the card is used.
Yep, absolutely.
Oop, what are we doing here?
Casting something. Cast a Blood Moon, it looks like.
Okay.
Well, that's going to change things over on Tucker's side. Cut off a lot of these mana options. Still 6 lands in play.
Yeah, I was about to say, it really doesn't hinder him.
Well, here's the problem, though. There's no waste in play.
Okay.
So he's cut off of all the Eldrazi, unless maybe he wants to cash in that Ghost Quarter right now, go get a waste. Is there a copy of Waste in the deck? That's the first question we need to ask. There is.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's not, right?
Yeah, there's 2 copies.
And like you said, that might have been the right thing to do there. It's just sacrifice one of your lands. But it also potentially just has more lands in his hand. There's a reason that the opponent is attacking through the Ensnaring Bridge, and it's not because Ryan doesn't want to cast cards, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, could be full of lands right now. Haven't quite gotten a look at Ryan's hand yet. Manges going to go ahead and take a draw, and it feels like things are starting to swing in his direction now.
Yeah, all of these tokens, being 1/1s, are the workaround from this Ensnaring Bridge. And it's possible that just 2 or 3 turns of attacks closes out this game.
Yeah, I also think at some point, seeing as many cards as Manges is, we'll find some type of artifact removal. I'm assuming we're dealing with a Braid out of the sideboard from this deck. I do see a copy of a Braid. I'm sure that made its way in. That can, of course, pick off that Witchbane Orb and just use the Aria of Flame to end the game real quick if Manges chooses. Here's an Arclight Phoenix, and all those tokens are going to rumble into the red zone. One is going to be blocked by Reality Smasher, but a bunch of damage headed Ryan Tucker's way.
Do 1/1s rumble?
They traipse, actually.
They might bumble into the red zone.
Yeah, traipse and bumble their way into the red zone.
Sure.
So there you do see a waste in Ryan Tucker's hands. That explains why he wasn't cashing in the Ghost Quarter. Going to go ahead and play Mind Stone as well. There's another source of colorless mana.
Okay, and he's going to live through another turn here. Mm-hmm. So potentially, and the Mind Stone is also great. It allows him to cast those Eldrazi that we were talking about.
But if you're Tucker, what are you working towards right now? How are you coming out ahead in this game?
So you need to empty your hand so that the Ensnaring Bridge is just a pure lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can find another Karn to lock your opponent out of the game.
Okay.
So empty hand, and then Karn into the lattice.
And hand is down to one card at this point. One waste, we know. Tucker really wants to fade a land next turn. Does not want to land off the top of the deck. And, of course, that's why the Mind Stone not being cashed in. Here come those creatures again. Reality Smasher going to pick one off. Tucker takes 5 more damage.
Yeah, and I think, Manges is very incentivized to just keep casting spells here. Because of the possibility of getting locked out, because of the possibility of just never being able to attack again.
Now here's a question. Do you have to target something when you trigger this aria?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this looks like a must.
Yeah. And there you see some gesturing. I'm assuming we're dealing with these aria triggers and what exactly we're doing with them. That's going to go to 6. There goes Saheeli. And the alternative is he has to target himself.
Yep.
Okay.
This is actually super funny.
This is awkward. Not a May trigger there on Aria Flame.
Oh, how absurd.
Things have officially gotten weird now, Kirk Krempels. Welcome back to the booth. Very odd game to be commentating.
Yeah, the Arya turning on his master, as Cedric would like to say, it's potential for James to be hoisted by his own petard here.
Right, absolutely. Oh, there was a land off the top.
And it's just, you kind of have to feel for Ryan. Look at all those lands in play.
Just needs to fade a land to cut off those tokens from attacking.
Yeah, it's just like any spell, please, deck.
Yeah, because Manges rapidly running out of spells he can potentially play. Here come the beats from those tokens again. Has to draw a non-land here. Takes the draw.
Oh, that'll do it.
I believe Warping Whale.
Yep.
Happy to see that one. Well, now I think we just have a game again.
Well, it's funny because they both just sit there and look at each other for a bunch of turns, right? One of them's looking for an Abrade, only one copy of that, and the other one's looking for, we think a Karn.
Right. Well, here's that Warping Whale. Think we're going to make an Eldrazi Scion is the play, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think the mode doesn't even matter here, right? Like, you're just trying to get this card out of your hand.
So now if you're Manges, it's pretty much a braid or bust.
Yes. And on the other side, he has the option of Walking Ballista, also is a very good draw for him.
I think he just drew all his dust off the top.
Whoa.
That's so weird because, his opponent is kind of locked here.
Yeah, I mean, casting the all his dust scoops up his opponent's whole board.
Right. He doesn't have a choice, quite frankly.
Yeah, he's got to get the card out of his hand.
This is what we're doing, whether you like it or not. So here is all his dust. All colored permanents going to make their way to the bin. Tucker now with all the mana in the world.
Sure, the servo's still sticking around.
Yep, colorless servos. Follow-up's going to be Serum Visions.
But he did open up all of the opponent's cantrips. The Arya is no longer on the board.
Exactly, and I think that's problematic. But like we said, he didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
He just had to cast the spell, no option. But again, this is a very weird game. And I think we're in turn 1 of turns now. I did see a die hit the battlefield. I'll confirm that.
Oh, what a ridiculous matchup.
Oh, I guess there's an extension in this match that was not turns. That was signifying possibly that Eldrazi Scion token briefly. That's what I'm being told. Okay, so still plenty of time to play this one out. Is that an additional Aria Flame? Yeah, James says not again. not going through this one. Uh-oh. Here's a braid.
There it is.
It's going to take out the Ensnaring Bridge. And here come these 6 tokens headed into the red zone. And a Lightning Bolt for the blocker. And I think that's going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, he can cash in the Mind Stone to see what he draws
Take
here.
a look, yeah. Anything interesting? Doing a little counting, confirming life totals, frustrated hand gestures, and that is going to do it. Ryan Tucker defeated by James Manges, Izzet Phoenix, and you see the players, the expressions on their faces there.
I mean, that's exactly how we expect the match to play out, right?
I have never seen that match play out in that fashion.